I actually see it more reflected back at me, not just from school friends, but also women that you're dating. They have an expectation. You know, there was one, in fact, I wasn't even dating, but I was just in a bar, and then basically I was trying to get some drinks, and the girl was basically like, oh, you're not going to push in. And it was like, it was held as a marker against me. Why didn't you push in? Hi everybody, my name is Paris.
Hi, I'm Selina.
And we are Love Uncut. So welcome. So this week I want to get straight into it. This topic is about what is an alpha male. And I just want to, I guess, discuss what I think it is. Selina talks about what she thinks it is from her perspective, and I guess how that concept has or hasn't affected our lives. So I guess, can I kick off then?
Yeah, go on.
You know, and ask, actually, so what is an alpha male to you? How was the concept of an alpha male introduced to you, if at all?
I mean, how has it introduced to me? I guess you see stuff in movies, and you hear stuff about what a man should be. I guess to me they're two kind of definitions of an alpha male that I grew up being exposed to. So there's the, like, you know, I guess the strong man who protects his woman and who's like muscly and is like the top of the male food chain, I suppose. In like the physical sort of strength kind of sense, there's that kind of alpha male. And then the other kind of alpha male, I suppose, is like the provider kind of alpha male. So someone who provides for their family, is reliable, is the person who brings in the income, is the person who can sort out all the problems. So yeah, I guess you have the element of the kind of strong protector, and then you have the sort of provider kind of.
So when you
definition.
say sort out the problems, what do you mean? What kind of problems? What do you mean?
Well, anything. If you have any problem, it's like you go to the head of the household, right? The dad, who is usually the person who sorts everything out. I guess growing up, that's what you see. Like the dad would sort.
So a dad can be an alpha male?
In my childhood, that is what I always was exposed to, in terms of the male of the household who brings in the income and sorts everything out and is a good role model. That's like an alpha male type personality. Or there's the kind of superhero, super strong kind of alpha male type personality. I don't really think these definitions are helpful, because not all families are the same, i.e. not all families will have a dad that people can run to and rely on. Not all dads are good dads, good people, you know. Same thing with like strong people who are strong and can fight other people off, and people are scared of them, doesn't necessarily make them a good person. So I just kind of think this whole alpha male thing is nonsense. I think there are other elements of alpha male kind of alpha maleism that comes in, like not showing, like not crying is an alpha male, and not talking about your emotions is alpha male, and kind of being able to cope or pretend that you can cope with everything is alpha male. Like at the end of the day, men are humans, so they can't do everything, and they shouldn't feel like they need to do everything and pretend almost. So yeah. I mean, I feel like that's basically the video wrapped up. I'll see you guys next week. I'm only joking, but yeah, I guess to add my 2 pence in there, I guess a little bit of a story flashback. I remember when I was about 7, 8, and I went to go play at my friend's house, and he had an older brother who was about 11, 12, and obviously that's like a massive age difference back then. And then basically the friend whose house I went to go and play at, he asked his big brother, hey, do you like my friend? Because you remember that's like a thing. You know, back then, like in terms of you want your brother or your family to like your friend. Did that not happen? Hey, do you like my friend also? Anyway. I don't know, I think growing up I was more conscious of it as the like younger friend. So if I went to my friend's house and they had an older sibling, I wanted their older sibling to like me.
Yeah, I'm basically saying it's the same kind of thing in terms of, okay, not only have I been invited to go and play over at my friend's house, he also wants his big brother, who's just chilling in the house, to like me. He said, hey, to his big brother, what do you think of my friend? And he said, yeah, he's okay for a girl.
Oh, that's not nice, is it?
At the time, I was just like, oh, you know, that's not a positive thing that you're saying that I'm a girl, basically, you know. So maybe it was my mannerisms or my energy or whatever. But there's a distinct understanding, I think, throughout society that men or boys are supposed to be a certain way inclined, and
Rough and gruff and tough.
yeah, and like the way you described, and anybody that's not that, you're not even a man anymore. You're all the way into a girl, basically. You know, even at 12 years old, his big brother, you know, said that. Big up Mr. Shaldo if he's watching this, because it was him. He may or may not remember this because it's like 30 years ago. So I didn't really internalize any of that in terms of, oh, now I'm going to be a tough guy. Oh, never again. I'm going to prove myself. That's never really been me, but I feel like I'm an outlier. I don't care, I'm going to toot my own horn in that sense, in terms of needing to prove myself to other people in any kind of way. You know what I'm saying? I didn't query and quiz what he really meant. I just knew it was a disparaging comment. And I guess, look, my name's Paris, so growing up, people were like, oh, that's a girl's name, you know, so there was always these question marks floating around me, I guess, almost, of, you know, how manly and masculine I am. But I think in these days, in this day and age, in order to be a balanced human, you do have to be in touch with both of your sides, and I think that humans have balance and different traits which make them what they are.
When you say both of your sides, what do you mean?
I guess your more masculine side, if you're a guy, and then your feminine side.
Isn't that, like, in itself part of the problem, because you're defining your characteristics or your personality by gender?
Yeah, you know what, the way your mum loves you and the way your dad loves you is different kinds of love. And there's such thing as being, well, let me finish, there's such thing as being maternal love and there's paternal love.
Yeah, but so remember, there's this documentary on Netflix, Babies Explained or something like that, Birth Explained, we'll find the right title. But it talks about how the same hormones and things that women experience with babies, if a man is present and is a present father and does all the things that women do with their kids at the early stages of being a mother, they get the same hormones and the same responses of, you know, love and dopamine and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not saying there aren't any differences gender to gender, of course there are, biologically, but I think when it comes to emotions, like, I don't know. I'm
not saying one's better or worse, by the way, I'm just saying they are different. And my whole point preceding that point was that you know, there's a level of balance that occurs, you know, in you. And I think, you know, when people are talking about, you know, an alpha male, it is within a kind of a cis heterosexual lens and a nuclear family lens. When you described alpha male, you're talking about a dad in a household with a mum. So that's why I'm making these, you know, that kind of reference. This is kind of built into society. People are like, oh, don't be a bleep. If you know what that bleep was, you know what I'm saying? People,
a P or a B.
Yeah, when people are basically saying that you're afraid or you're weak, you're a bleep, which is backwards thinking, because we know in terms of the, you know, birth canal, that's one of the strongest places in the body, right? You know, it's a strong adaptable thing. So there's a lot of this kind of let's just call it what it is, toxic masculinity that is built into, you know, our society. And it starts from yay high. And clearly in my example, what you're seeing is the expectations of what I'm supposed to be as a person are very clearly defined, even at the youngest of ages. You know, don't cry, be physically strong, you know, express your emotions, but only in a certain way. And it just...
or just don't even express your emotions at all,
Yeah, I mean, you know, express your emotions in terms of, okay, show anger. Any other emotion you can't show, or is not expected from you, if you know what I'm saying. So I feel like that's why sometimes the discourse between men and women can go a certain way, because I think a lot of women feel like there's a kind of a physical dominance that men hold over them, which may or may not rear itself at any kind of moment, because I guess there's an expectation that that's the most natural way for a man to express himself, if you know what I'm saying.
Not being angry.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, as humans, men are able to express a wide range of emotions in a wide range of different ways, but I think the only acceptable way in society is anger, it appears. It appears that anything outside of anger, even just expressing or complaining or ranting or venting, is seen as weakness. And people use the word emotional, and it's... when people use the word emotional, they don't necessarily mean expressive or in touch with your emotions. It's more you're out of control, and it's just like, also expressing anything other than anger makes you out of control. That's the problem here. So
there are a lot of men who, because they've never been allowed to express those emotions or been told they can express their emotions in a healthy way, their only default is anger. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a cyclical thing where, like, if you're not able to talk about things in a calm way because you've never really been allowed to, or you're not able to release something in the form of tears, or you're not able to say, oh, I'm scared or whatever, show that vulnerability, then stuff builds up, right? And then it is a case of it's anger or aggression that does come out, so that by nature becomes the default that people expect to see.
Okay, so toxic masculinity is defined as a narrow and repressive description of manhood, designating manhood as defined by violence, sex, status, and aggression. It's the cultural idea of manliness, where strength is everything, while emotions are a weakness, where sex and brutality are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability or to simply not being hypersexual, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. And I actually see it more reflected back at me, not just from school friends, but also women that you're dating. They have an expectation. You know, there was one, in fact I wasn't even dating, but I was just in a bar, and then basically I was trying to get some drinks, and the girl was basically like, oh, you're not going to push in. And it was like, it was held as a marker against me. Why didn't you push in? You know, why did you go and stand and wait in a queue, sort of thing? And it's like, these women, some of them want you to just go out there and assert yourself as a so on and so forth. And it's very primitive and cavemanish, I think, in this society.
It's just glorifying nonsense, really. But I don't understand how, from that definition, what you just read is anything that anyone would look for in a partner. Like, I just don't understand, why would you want someone who is
all those things?
So it's not, you know, like, maybe my initial definition was quite naive in terms of being the strong man or whatever, the head of the pecking order. But if that is actually being diluted to being, what is it? You must be hypersexualized to be a man. You must be
dominant, physically, violent.
Yeah, like all these
it does feed into
quite scary things that actually can lead to being quite abusive. yeah, I don't really. It's like that whole bad boy thing, isn't it? A lot of girls like bad boys.
It's the bad boy phase, and you're like, I don't know how anybody could go through that. I'm like, that's
yeah, but if
literally
you're
90%.
like a kid, maybe because you have no concept of, I don't know, you don't have the ability to see through the facade or whatever you're being fed by society or in magazines, movies, whatever. But as an adult, surely you know that's nonsense.
But the woman that wanted me to elbow to the front was a woman.
Ah, well,
So I know, you know what it is.
Alright, at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure she's fine, you know. But I think it's a thing where I guess from your perspective as a person, you couldn't imagine or purposefully reinforcing, you know, the level of toxic masculinity that was described there. Whereas to a lot of women, it is second nature, you know. And, you know, I had an ex-colleague saying that her dad had never cried in front of her, and you know she'd look at a man differently if he ever cried in front of her. And I think she was like 28 at the time, 29. So unfortunately, Selina, it's not something that people grow out of. It's especially where women don't necessarily understand men that well, and partly because they're not willing to listen, but then partly because it's just a big mystery.
But men are just like humans. Do you know what I mean?
Surprise, plot twist.
So why? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw, you know, older men in my life cry, I kind of didn't know what to do, but then the empathy in you and the care in you takes over, and you just give them a hug and make them a cup of tea, make sure they're all right. You don't make them feel like crap for crying or belittle them, because when I cry, I don't want anyone to make me feel like crap, right? I think it's just, you just treat people how you want to be treated. I don't know why, as humans, we always overcomplicate everything. It really, really annoys me.
There's a lot of gender roles and stuff involved in it, and as you said, you did link in being alpha male into the, you know, the family unit. People aspiring to have a family, they look at a man that needs to be an apex, and as you say, the man food chain. That ish is real in a lot of men's heads, as well as women. And within male friendship groups, there's this fallacy, especially from a woman perspective, as I hear it, that men are more likely to listen to men, when the truth is there are all these different statuses and levels of man that you will listen to. A lot of men will only listen to men that are maybe richer than them or more successful, you know, getting more women. All of this links to toxic masculinity though.
Masculinity.
And it gets in the way of, you know, genuine, honest communication, and as you say, overcomplicates things. And a lot of people walk around hanging with these burdens on their shoulders of how do I assert myself over the next man in the next room, and it just sounds a bit insecure to me. It sounds like it actually is a level
so everyone's competing to get to that
man of all men.
The peak of being the man of all men, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know, being a king or whatever. And the thing is, as humans, we all have different strengths and weaknesses, you know. And it just, what it is, people are just trying to, I guess, focus on your strength and get insecure about it and try and suppress you and all these different things. So I've been very selective with myself in terms of the kind of people I have around me. You know, there's no women or men around me anymore who reinforce this hyper competitiveness and wanting me to risk my physical, this, that, you know. Because half the time you do all that stuff and then like you're in jail, and who's gonna protect your lady then? You gotta think about it. You gotta think.
Oh, who's going to protect you then in jail? I mean, do you know what I mean? Why should you be in jail because you're trying to prove that you're a macho guy to help someone or protect someone, and then you're the one that gets landed with the jail sentence? Or the black eye at the very least, you know. So
yeah, you know, you got to think. It's absolute nonsense, but a lot of people subscribe to it. You know, so many people subscribe to it. Wake up. Because you're hurting yourself, you're hurting people that, you know, you purport to care about. And, you know, this big woman, like even Makosi from Big Brother, you know, she was saying online that she thought every man was supposed to be an alpha. It's like, that's crazy to me, you know, because it's like, look at that standard that every man has to fit. Strength looks like different things in different people. I personally think if you're not reactive and you can control your emotions, that's the sign of a strong person, as opposed to someone who can just be drawn out every 5 seconds, you know, based on a mindset that someone else has implanted in you. Where's the strength of your mind? Why are you just following like a sheep this wider narrative? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think men need to kind of maybe reevaluate.
And women.
Wait, now I'm getting there. I think men need to reevaluate kind of themselves and reflect, and do they actually agree with all this stuff they're being fed, and even their upbringing, like just reflect on that, and just who are they really, who do they want to be, how do they want their siblings or kids to live, and that kind of thing. But I do think that obviously all men are raised by parents, so whether it's a woman or a man or grandma, auntie, whatever, and those people obviously have an impact. So as someone who's looking after children, everyone needs to kind of be like, oh crap, am I saying things like, oh, why are you crying? Don't cry, men don't cry. All this stuff, even if it's a flippant comment, or if the little girl, your sister's allowed to cry and you're not, all these things, or how your dad reacts to your mum in the heat of the moment, and you start to think that's acceptable behaviour. All these things, like, they add up to make a person, don't they?
And I have to say, a lot of men do stuff to impress women. So it is a lot of women projecting this model back on men who just try and fulfill it. So women can play a very important role from the earliest ages of, teenager and upwards, to say that, I respect you as a man or as a person, no matter what your strengths or weaknesses are or what your inclinations are. Because, as I say, not everything is defined by Hollywood. But if you're allowing it to, then more for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people allow it to.
Yeah, square jaw, smoking, doesn't
tall,
speak.
dark and handsome.
Yeah, you can be tall, dark and handsome, but it's all the other.
You can be vulnerable too.
You can be whatever you want to be, and you can, as Selina said, you can reflect on your childhood, what made you the way you are. There's always answers there. If you can afford it, therapists can always talk you through that. Gender roles, patriarchy is harmful to both men and women. Because I guess this society has a certain order, a lot of people reinforce that order without thinking twice. But as we know, in terms of male suicide rates, they're not that good, and maybe it's because they're thinking like
they're getting worse and worse, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, I need to be an alpha. I need to be an alpha. I need to be an alpha. Like, I'm glad I've opted out of that battle. I've still got battles in life, but that battle over there of trying to be an alpha male, it's actually one that I'm proud to say that I'm just not opted into. So if you think you can look at someone, or you can presume, their strengths and weaknesses, what you can and can't do, more for you, you're underestimating people, that's up to you. You know what I'm saying? I think you just got to move forward, find your own strength. As I say, strength looks like different things to different people. And yeah, be the best person you can be. Don't worry about some apex alpha male thing or alpha female. You don't need to be all things to all people.
What's an alpha female?